Adanna Okoro never imagined that offering comfort to a frightened child would entangle her in the web of Seoul's most dangerous man. At an exclusive charity gala dripping with Korea's elite, she noticed what hundreds of guests pretended not to see: a young boy crumpled beneath a grand piano, his world collapsing under the weight of too much sound, too much light, too much everything. His father, Kang Jiwon, the untouchable crime lord whose whisper could end empires, stood across the room, his face a mask of controlled devastation. When Adanna approached the boy with gentle hands and a soft voice, the entire ballroom held its breath. She didn't know he hadn't spoken to a stranger in 4 years. She didn't know she was crossing an invisible line that separated the protected from the damned. But when the boy's trembling fingers reached for hers, something in Jiwon's carefully constructed world shattered and reformed entirely around this unexpected woman. Welcome to Afro-Korean TV. If you're already captivated, smash that notification bell because this story is about to spiral into dangerous obsession. 6 weeks before that life-changing evening, Adanna Okoro had been sitting in her cramped Atlanta apartment, staring at rejection emails she could no longer bear to read. The final termination letter from Peachtree Pediatric Center lay on her coffee table like an accusation. Budget restructuring, they called it. Mass layoffs that gutted the entire special education department. 10 years of her life gone in a single afternoon. She had dedicated herself to that work. Speech pathology for children with developmental disorders, teaching nonverbal kids to communicate through alternative methods, sign language, visual boards, adaptive technology. She had watched miracles happen in those therapy rooms, watched children who had been locked in silence find ways to express the universes inside them. Now she was 33, unemployed, and drowning in student loan debt that had seemed manageable when she had a salary. Her phone rang. Dr. Patricia Nwasu, a mentor from graduate school who had relocated to Seoul 5 years ago. "Adanna, I need you to listen carefully," Patricia said without preamble. "The Hanseong Foundation is looking for a lead speech pathologist, specialized work with high-functioning autistic children. The compensation is exceptional, housing provided, and before you say no, I've already sent them your portfolio." "Seoul, Patricia, I don't speak Korean." "You speak compassion, you speak patience, those are universal languages." Patricia's voice softened. "You're dying in Atlanta, Adanna, I can hear it in your voice. Come here, start over, let yourself breathe again." Adanna closed her eyes, feeling the walls of her apartment pressing in. How soon would they need an answer? "The interview is tomorrow, video call, 9 a.m. your time." The interview lasted 2 hours. A panel of executives and medical professionals grilled her on methodology, on ethics, on her approach to families in crisis. Adanna answered with raw honesty, describing both her successes and her failures. She talked about Kai, the 7-year-old who learned to communicate through drawings after 3 years of silence. She talked about the teenage girl who finally told her parents she loved them using a text-to-speech device. She talked about the boy she couldn't reach, the one whose family pulled him from therapy, and how that failure still haunted her. The foundation director, a woman named Dr. Beek, studied her through the screen. "When can you start?" You're offering me the position." "You're exactly what we need. Someone who treats these children as whole people, not problems to be fixed." Dr. Beek smiled. 2 weeks. "I'll make it work." 20 days later, Adanna stepped off a plane into Seoul's organized chaos. The city assaulted her senses, modern skyscrapers piercing ancient mountains, technology and tradition woven together in ways that shouldn't work but somehow did. The Hanseong Foundation had arranged a small apartment in Itaewon, diverse and international, where her being black wouldn't make her a constant spectacle. Dr. Beek welcomed her warmly the next morning. "You'll be working primarily with 12 children, various presentations, autism spectrum disorder, apraxia, selective mutism." She slid a folder across her desk. "The Foundation's annual gala is Saturday evening. All senior staff are expected to attend." "I don't really do formal events," Adanna admitted. "Consider it part of your orientation, meeting donors, building relationships." Dr. Beek's expression turned serious. "A word of advice: Seoul's elite can be complicated. Be polite, be professional, and be careful who you trust." "Understood." Saturday arrived too quickly. The dress the foundation sent was deep emerald silk, elegant against her dark skin. Adanna twisted her locks into an updo, applied minimal makeup, and stared at her reflection. She looked sophisticated, confident. She felt like an imposter. The gala was held at the Schiller Hotel, a palace of marble and gold. Adanna moved through the crowd like a ghost, observing the intricate dance of wealth and influence. She recognized the hierarchy immediately, the way certain guests commanded space while others orbited like satellites, desperate for proximity to power. Then she heard it, a soft, repetitive thudding sound beneath the ambient noise of the party. She tracked it to a grand piano in an alcove, and there, curled underneath it, was a boy. 9 or 10 years old, his small body rigid with distress. He was hitting his head against the piano leg in a steady rhythm, thud, 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 self-regulation through pain. Adanna's heart clenched. She scanned the room and found him, the father. He stood surrounded by men in expensive suits, all of them vying for his attention. But his eyes kept drifting to the boy beneath the piano, and in them she saw anguish so profound it stole her breath. She moved before she could second-guess herself. Kneeling several feet from the piano, she made herself small and unthreatening. "Hey," she said quietly, "that rhythm you're making, it's really steady, like a heartbeat." The boy didn't acknowledge her, but the thudding paused. "I'm Adanna, I'm new here and I don't know very many people." She kept her voice low, soothing. "This party is really overwhelming, isn't it? Too many sounds all at once." A barely perceptible nod. "I saw some doors that lead to a terrace. It's quieter there. Would you like to go outside, just for a few minutes?" Silence stretched between them. Adanna waited, patient. She had learned long ago that rushing children in distress only drove them deeper into themselves. Then slowly the boy crawled out from under the piano. He wouldn't look at her, his gaze fixed somewhere past her left shoulder, but he stood. "Can I walk with you?" she asked. Another tiny nod. They moved through the ballroom together. The boy's steps hesitant but deliberate. Adanna kept a respectful distance, letting him control the pace. She felt eyes on them, hundreds of eyes, watching this strange interaction with fascination or judgment or something darker. The terrace was blessedly quiet, just the distant hum of the city below. The boy immediately went to the railing, his fingers tracing patterns on the stone. "My name is Kang Jiwon," he said suddenly, his voice rough from disuse. "I'm 10. Adanna's chest tightened with emotion. "It's nice to meet you, Jiwon. You're not Korean." "No, I'm from America, from Atlanta." "That's where the big aquarium is. I saw it on a documentary. They have whale sharks." "That's right. Have you ever seen a whale shark in person?" "No, I don't like aquariums, too many people, too much noise." He continued tracing patterns. "But I like learning about sea creatures. They make sense, they follow patterns." "People follow patterns too," Adanna said gently, "just different ones." "People's patterns are confusing." "Sometimes, but that's okay. Confusing doesn't mean bad." Jiwon finally looked at her, his dark eyes sharp and assessing. "You're the new speech pathologist at the Hensbung Foundation." "How did you know that?" "I read the foundation's staff directory. I read everything." He tilted his head. "Are you good at your job?" "I try to be." "Trying isn't the same as succeeding." Adanna smiled. "You're absolutely right, I should say. Yes, I'm good at my job. I help kids find their voices, whatever form those voices take." "My voice works fine. It's people's reactions to my voice that don't work." The insight was so sharp, so clear that Adanna felt tears prick her eyes. "That sounds really lonely." "It is," Munya's fingers stilled on the railing. "But Upper tries. He doesn't understand me, but he tries." "Upper is your father?" "Yes, Kang Jiwon, he's very important and very dangerous." Munya said it matter-of-factly, without emotion. "People are afraid of him." "Are you afraid of him?" "No, he's only dangerous to people who threaten us. To me, he's just Upper. He makes bad jokes and he can't cook and he stays up too late working." Munya looked at her again. "But he's sad. He's been sad since Alma died." Before Adanna could respond, a voice cut through the air like a blade. "Munya." She turned to find a man standing in the terrace doorway, tall, powerfully built, with features that could have been carved from stone. His black suit was immaculate, his hair swept back from a face that revealed nothing. But his eyes burned with an intensity that made Adanna's pulse stutter. "Upper," Munya's voice brightened slightly. "This is Adanna. She works at the foundation. She helped me when the party got too loud." Jiwon's gaze shifted to Adanna, and she felt the full weight of his attention like a physical force. "Miss Okoro. You know my names. I know everything about everyone who works with my foundation." He moved closer, his presence overwhelming. "Munya doesn't speak to strangers." "She's not a stranger now," Munya interjected. "We had a conversation." "So I see." Jiwon's expression remained unreadable, but something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, relief. "Munya Harabuji is looking for you. He wants to show you the hotel's koi pond." "The koi pond has 17 fish," Munya said. 3 kahuka, 4 senk, 6 showa, 2 achaba and 2 butterfly koi. I counted them earlier. "Then you can tell Harabuji the exact count. He'll be impressed." Munya nodded and headed for the door, then paused. "Will I see you again, Adanna?" "I hope so." "Good, I'd like that." He disappeared inside. Silence settled over the terrace. Jiwon studied her with unsettling focus, and Adanna fought the urge to fidget under his scrutiny. "How did you do that?" he asked finally. "Do what?" "Get him to talk, to leave a place he'd designated as safe, to trust you." "I just listened, met him where he was instead of demanding he come to where I wanted him." "Therapists have been trying that approach for 4 years." "Then maybe they weren't really listening." Adanna lifted her chin, refusing to be intimidated. "Children know when adults are performing compassion versus actually feeling it." "And you actually feel it?" "Always. These kids aren't puzzles to solve. They're people trying to navigate a world that wasn't built for them." Jiwon moved closer, and Adanna became acutely aware of how isolated they were on this terrace. "Have dinner with me tomorrow." "Is that a question or a command?" "Both." "I don't respond well to commands." His lips curved slightly, not quite a smile but close. "Then consider it a request, one I'd very much like you to accept." "Why?" "Because I need to understand how you reached my son in 5 minutes when an army of specialists couldn't reach him in 4 years." He held her gaze. "And because I want to know more about the woman who didn't hesitate to help a child everyone else ignored." Against her better judgment, Adanna felt herself agreeing. One dinner to discuss Munya. Of course, to discuss Munya. But the way he looked at her suggested they'd be discussing much more than his son. The next morning, Adanna made the mistake of Googling Kang Jiwon. The results were terrifying. Article after article detailed the Kang organization's iron grip on Seoul's underground economy. Money laundering, extortion, political manipulation. Jiwon had inherited the syndicate from his father at 25 and had spent the last decade expanding its reach throughout Asia. They called him the Ghost King because his enemies had a way of vanishing without a trace. He had been married once to a woman named Yuna who died during childbirth. Complications, the article said. Humupjung that couldn't be stopped. She had lived long enough to hold her son once before bleeding out in the hospital room. The tabloids were cruel about Munya, speculating about his disabilities and whether he was fit to eventually inherit his father's empire. They treated his autism like a scandal, a weakness that could topple the entire organization. Adanna closed her laptop, feeling sick. She should cancel dinner, should run as far from this world as possible. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw Munya curled under that piano, alone in a room full of people, saw the devastation in Jiwon's eyes as he watched his son suffer. That evening, a car arrived precisely at 7. The driver was silent and professional, opening the door to reveal Jiwon waiting inside. He wore navy tonight, slightly less formal but no less imposing. His eyes swept over her simple black dress, and something heated flickered in their depths. "You came," he said. "I almost didn't." "I know," that almost smile again. "I had a contingency plan." "What kind of contingency plan?" "The kind that would have involved me showing up at your apartment with takeout and refusing to leave until you agreed to talk to me." He gestured to the seat. "This is more civilized." She sat, maintaining distance. "You Googled me, I Googled you. And yet you're here." "I'm here for Minjae." "Of course," his tone suggested he didn't quite believe her. "We're going somewhere private. I don't eat in public." "Because of who you are." "Because of what I am." He held her gaze. "Does what you learned frighten you?" "Yes." "Good, you should be frightened. Fear keeps people alive in my world." "I'm not part of your world." "Not yet." The restaurant was the entire top floor of a building Jiwon owned. Private, elegant, empty, except for them and discreet staff who moved like shadows. They dined on food Adanna couldn't pronounce, paired with wine that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Tell me about your work," Jiwon said over the first course. So she did. She explained speech pathology, the science behind communication disorders, how the brain could find alternative pathways when traditional ones were blocked. She talked about the spectrum of autism, how every child presented differently, how approaches that worked for one might fail spectacularly with another. "Minjae is brilliant," she said. "His mind works in ways most people can't comprehend. That's not a deficit, that's a gift. A gift that isolates him only because the world hasn't adjusted to accommodate him. If we built environments that respected his needs instead of forcing him to constantly adapt to ours, he'd thrive." "How would you build such an environment?" "I'd need to work with him first, understand his specific triggers, his comfort zones, his preferred methods of processing information." She met his eyes. "But I'd need consistent access. One-off sessions won't accomplish anything." "Then come work with him, exclusively." "I can't. I have 11 other clients through the foundation." "I'll fund positions to cover your caseload. You focus entirely on Minjae." "You can't just..." "Yes, I can." His voice was steel wrapped in silk. "Name your requirements, resources, equipment, schedule flexibility, salary, whatever you need." "This isn't about what I need. It's about what Minjae needs." He leaned forward. "And what my son needs is you. I saw it last night. The way he relaxed in your presence, the way he voluntarily communicated. That doesn't happen, Miss Okoro, ever." The raw desperation beneath his controlled exterior silenced her protests. 3 sessions a week, at your home where he's comfortable. I design the program, you don't interfere." "Agreed. And if this doesn't work?" "It will work." His certainty was absolute, "because I've never seen him respond to anyone the way he responded to you." The Kang estate was less a home and more a fortress. Multiple buildings spread across immaculate grounds, surrounded by walls, guards, and security that looked military-grade. Adanna felt like she was entering a different world entirely. Minjae was waiting in a sunlit therapy room specifically designed for his needs. Soft lighting, muted colors, organized spaces for different activities. Someone had clearly invested significant resources in creating a sensory-friendly environment. He sat in a corner, arranging small objects in precise patterns. He glanced up when she entered but didn't stop his sorting. "Hi, Minjae," Adanna said softly, settling on the floor several feet away. "Remember me?" "You're Adanna Okoro, age 33, born in Houston, Texas, educated at University of Texas at Austin and Emerson College, speech pathologist specializing in developmental communication disorders, current resident of Itaewon." He continued arranging his objects. "You've been hired to fix me." "I haven't been hired to fix you. You're not broken." That made him pause. His eyes met hers briefly. "Everyone thinks I'm broken." "Everyone's wrong." She pulled a communication board from her bag. "I've been hired to work with you. That's different. Working with someone means collaboration, partnership. It means I learn from you as much as you learn from me." "What could you possibly learn from me?" "How your mind works, how you process information, what helps you feel safe and what makes you feel overwhelmed." She set the board between them, not pushing it toward him. "And maybe, if you're willing, how I can help you communicate in ways that feel comfortable to you." Minjae studied the board with interest. It was customized, a mix of pictures, words, and symbols for expressing complex thoughts and emotions. "What if I don't want to communicate with most people?" he asked. "Then you don't. This is just a tool. You decide when and how to use it." "Will Appa make me use it?" "Your father can't make you do anything. This is entirely your choice." Minjae absorbed this, then tentatively touched one of the symbols. "Curious." "You're curious about the board." "I'm curious about you, why you're different from the others." "What were the others like?" "Fake, they smiled too much, used voices that didn't match their faces, touched me without asking, talked to Appa about me like I wasn't in the room." His fingers traced the board's edge. "You don't do any of those things." "Because I respect you. Respect means treating you like a person who deserves autonomy and dignity." "I like that." Minjae picked up the board, examining it more closely. Can we try this just to see? Absolutely. By the end of the first week, Minjae was meeting Adanna at the therapy room door. He wouldn't make eye contact for more than a second, wouldn't tolerate unexpected touch, but he engaged. He used the communication board to express thoughts he struggled to verbalize. He asked questions about her life, her work, her favkrata things. Do you miss America? He asked during their 5th session. Sometimes I miss my friends, certain foods, the way everything's familiar. But you like it here. I'm starting to, she smiled at him, especially these sessions with you. Really, he looked skeptical. I'm not easy. Easy is boring, you're interesting. Upper thinks I'm difficult. Your father thinks you're precious, there's a difference. Jiwon began observing sessions from the doorway, his presence silent but constant. Afterward, he'd find Adanna in the hallway, asking careful questions about Minjae's progress. He used 17 new communication symbols today, Adanna reported after their 2nd week, including ones for complex emotions like conflicted and overwhelmed. That's significant. It means he's developing a more nuanced emotional vocabulary. Instead of shutting down when he feels things he can't express, he now has tools to identify and communicate those feelings. Because of you. Because he's ready, I'm just providing the framework. Jiwon's gaze was intense, searching. You're being modest. I'm being accurate, she held his eyes. Minjae's success is his own, I'm just a guide. You're more than that. He stepped closer and Adanna's pulse quickened. You're giving him something I couldn't, a bridge to the world. You give him love, stability, protection. Those matter more than any therapy technique. Do they? His voice dropped. Because I've given him all of those things for 10 years, and you've given him more progress in 2 weeks than he's made in the last 4 years combined. The intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. She looked away first, needing distance from whatever was building between them. I should go. Adanna. Her name in his voice did something to her spine, sent heat coiling through her chest. Same time tomorrow. Yes, she forced herself to meet his gaze again. Tomorrow. The first threat arrived 3 weeks into her work with Minjae. Adanna was leaving the estate when a black SUV blocked her car. 3 men emerged, their expressions cold and professional. Miss Okoro, the leader, smiled without warmth. Someone wants to speak with you, please come with us. I don't think so, she reached for her phone. He moved faster, wrenching the door open and pressing a cloth to her face. Chemical sweetness filled her lungs, and the world dissolved into darkness. She woke in a warehouse, concrete, harsh lights, the metallic smell of old machinery. Her hands were zip-tied behind her back, her head pounding with chemical residue. A man sat across from her, 50s, expensive suit, with the predatory stillness of a snake. Miss Okoro, I apologize for the dramatics. His Korean was excellent, refined. I'm Cha Dusham, a business associate of Kang Jiwon. Let me go. Shortly, first we need to discuss your position. My position? You've become very important to the Ghost King. That makes you valuable to me. Cha leaned forward. Jiwon has a weakness, that damaged boy of his, and now he has another weakness, you. I'm nobody to him. Is that why he's assigned a security detail to your building? Why he reviews footage of every session? Why his staff knows your favkrata tea? Cha's smile widened. Jiwon is obsessed with you. Obsession is leverage. Terror coiled in her stomach, but Adanna kept her voice steady. What do you want? Information, Jiwon's schedule, his security protocols, his private routines. Things an employee would naturally observe. I won't betray him. You will, or your family in Atlanta will suffer unfortunate accidents. Cha produced a tablet showing photos of her sister, her niece. Car crashes are so common, gas leaks, random violence. Rage burned through her fear. You're threatening children. I'm unsung cooperation. He stood, smoothing his suit. You have 24 hours to decide. My associates will be in touch. They left her zip-tied in the warehouse. It took Adanna 40 minutes to work her hands free using a metal edge on an old machine. By the time she staggered outside, dawn was breaking over Seoul. She called the only person she could think of. Adanna, Jiwon's voice was sharp with concern. Where are you? I don't know, a warehouse somewhere. Her voice cracked. I was taken. Stay exactly where you are. Share your location, don't move. He arrived in 15 minutes with 6 cars and a small army of men. He was out of his vehicle before it fully stopped, crossing to her in 3 strides. Are you hurt? His hands framed her face, tilting her head to examine the bruise forming on her temple. Did they? I'm okay, they just wanted to scare me. Who's? Chardasham. Every man present went absolutely still. Jiwon's face became a mask of cold rage. Get her to the estate, he told his second in command. Medical team standing by, full security lockdown. What are you going to do? Adanna asked. His eyes met hers and she saw death in them. What I should have done years ago. Jiwon. He threatened you, that means he dies. He cupped her face gently, the tender touch at odds with his words. No one touches what's mine and survives. I'm not yours. Aren't you? His thumb traced her cheekbone. I think we both know that's a lie. Chardasham was eliminated within 48 hours. The details weren't shared with Adanna, but she saw the news reports. Prominent businessman found dead, apparent suicide. She should have been horrified. Instead, she felt only relief. Your family in Atlanta has been moved to a safe location, Jiwon told her 3 days later. 24-hour protection until every associate of Chuz has been neutralized. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. His voice was flat, absolute. I will burn down the entire city before I let anyone threaten you again. This is insane. This is my world. You're part of it now, whether you intended to be or not. He moved closer, his presence overwhelming. For your safety, you'll stay at the estate, non-negotiable. You can't just... I can, I am, his eyes burned. You're here under my protection where I can see you, where I know you're safe. For how long? As long as necessary. He reached out, tucking a lock behind her ear. Or forever, whichever comes first. Living at the estate changed everything. Adanna saw Jiwon constantly, at breakfast, during session breaks, in the evening when work was done. She learned his routines, his habits, the man beneath the fearsome reputation. He was patient with Munya, endlessly so, stern when necessary but never harsh. He made terrible coffee and stayed up too late working. He listened to old jazz and read philosophy and had strong opinions about architecture. And he watched Adanna like she was the most fascinating thing in his world. You're staring again, she said one evening in his study. I'm aware. It's distracting. Good, he set down his papers. You distract me constantly. Fair's fair. This is inappropriate. Probably, he stood, crossing to where she sat reviewing session notes. Does that bother you? It should. But it doesn't. He leaned against the desk beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. Tell me to leave you alone, Adanna. Tell me you don't feel this thing between us. I can't. Why not? Because it would be a lie. His breath hitched audibly. Say that again. I feel it too, the admission escaped before she could stop it. Whatever this is, I feel it. He pulled her up, his hands spanning her waist, and kissed her. The kiss was consuming. Heat and hunger, his fingers threading through her locks, her hands fisting in his shirt. They were both drowning, both desperate, both terrified of how right this felt. When they broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. Stay tonight, he murmured, in my room with me. Jiwon. Just to sleep, I just want to hold you, to know you're real and safe and here. Every logical part of her brain screamed warnings, but her heart, her treacherous heart, had already decided. Just tonight, she whispered. He took her hand and led her upstairs. That night rewrote Adanna's understanding of intimacy. Jiwon touched her like she was sacred, like every curve and scar was a gift to be treasured. He was intense, demanding, but so tender it made her chest ache. Afterward, wrapped in his arms, listening to his heartbeat slow, she felt something she'd never felt before. Home. Don't leave, he murmured against her hair. Not just tonight, stay. I'm not going anywhere, she promised. But in the darkness, old fears whispered. She wasn't enough, she was damaged. Eventually he'd see her clearly and realize his mistake. She fell asleep with tears on her cheeks. Jiwon woke to empty sheets and a note. I'm sorry I can't be what you need. Please tell Minnie I'm sorry too. For one frozen moment he couldn't breathe. Then rage and panic flooded his system in equal measure. He called his security chief. Find her, now. Sir. She's running. Track her phone, her credit cards, every camera between here and the airport. Find her and bring her back. If she wants to leave. She's scared, his voice cracked slightly. She's scared and she's running, and I am not letting fear take her from me. Jiwon found her at Incheon Airport, sitting at a departure gate with red-rimmed eyes and coffee she wasn't drinking. She looked up as his shadow fell over her, and her face crumpled. Please, she whispered, just let me go. No, he sat beside her close enough that their shoulders touched. Talk to me, help me understand. You'll regret me, tears spilled over. You'll wake up one day and realize I'm just a broken woman with too much trauma who got lucky with your son. Is that what you think? It's what I know. Everyone leaves eventually. Everyone finds something better. Who hurt you this badly? His voice was dangerously soft. So she told him, about her mother dying when she was 8, about the foster system that followed, cold and institutional, about the boyfriend who called her too much when her anxiety flared, about the fiancé who said her past made her damaged goods. I'm not whole, she finished, her voice breaking. I'm stitched together with therapy and medication and willpower, and you deserve someone who isn't one panic attack away from falling apart. Jiwon was quiet for a long moment, then he took her hand, threading their fingers together. Let me tell you what I see, he said quietly. I see a woman who survived things that would have destroyed most people. I see someone who took every broken piece and built something beautiful. I see the only person in 4 years who made my son feel safe enough to try. His thumb stroked across her knuckles. You think your scars make you weak. They make you strong. They make you capable of understanding pain in ways people like me never could. He turned to face her fully. I've spent my life building walls, making myself untouchable, and then you walked into that gala and knelt before my son like he was precious, and every wall I'd ever built came down. Jiwon. I'm not finished. His dark eyes burned into hers. You asked if I'd regret you. The answer is never. Not today, not in 50 years. The only thing I'd regret is letting you walk onto that plane believing you're not worth fighting for. You can't promise that. I can, because I've never felt this way about anyone. My wife, I cared for her deeply. But this, he cupped her face. What I feel for you terrifies me. It keeps me awake at night. It makes me want to be better than I am. I'm scared, she admitted. I know, so am I, he pressed his forehead to hers. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. They returned to the estate together. Minjae was waiting, his small face set in unusual anger. You left, he said accusingly. Adanna knelt before him, her heart breaking. I did, and I'm so sorry. Are you leaving again? No, she glanced at Jiwon, who watched them with devastating intensity. I'm staying, I promise. Minjae studied her face with those too perceptive eyes. Promises can be broken. You're right, they can. She met his gaze directly. But I'm going to do everything in my power to keep this one, because you matter to me, Minjae. You and your father both matter to me. He considered this, then nodded slowly and wrapped his arms around her neck. Okay, but if you leave again, I'll be really mad. She laughed through her tears. That's fair. The following months transformed Adanna's understanding of family. She stopped fighting her feelings and let herself sink into this unexpected life. She woke in Jiwon's arms, breakfasted with Minjae, spent her days doing work that finally felt meaningful. For the first time in her life, she wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. Jiwon was attentive in ways that constantly surprised her. He remembered that she preferred her tea with honey, not sugar, that she liked silence in the mornings before her first cup of coffee, that certain textures made her uncomfortable. He learned sign language to better communicate with her non-verbal clients. He sat in on Minjae's sessions, not to supervise but to participate, learning alongside his son. You're terrible at this, Adanna observed one afternoon, watching him struggle with a sequencing exercise. I run a criminal empire. Pattern recognition should be my specialty. Upper is really bad, Minjae agreed solemnly. Worse than me. Betrayed by my own son, Jiwon pressed a hand to his chest dramatically. The pain. Minjae giggled, a sound that still made Adanna's heart sore every time she heard it. By the third month they had settled into a rhythm that felt remarkably like family. Mornings were for therapy sessions, afternoons were for field trips, museums, quiet parks, the aquarium Minjae had dreamed about. Evenings were for dinner together, where Minjae practiced his expanding vocabulary and Jiwon watched his son bloom with quiet wonder. Nights were for other things. Jiwon was an intense lover, passionate, attentive, surprisingly vulnerable. He touched her like she was precious, made love to her like he was trying to memorize every sound she made, every way her body responded. Afterward he'd hold her close, his face buried in her neck, and whisper things in Korean she was still learning to understand. "Stay," he'd murmur every night, "always stay." And every night she'd answer, "I'm not going anywhere." But trouble, as it always did in Jiwon's world, found them again. It started with whispers, rumors circulating through Seoul's elite circles about the American woman who had infiltrated the Kang household. They called her a gold digger, an opportunist, a nobody who had seduced her way into one of Korea's most powerful families. Adanna tried to ignore it. Gossip was inevitable when you were involved with someone like Jiwon, but then the tabloids picked up the story. Ghost King's mystery woman, who is Adanna Okoro? The article was vicious. It detailed her mother's death, her time in foster care, her broken engagement, all of it framed as evidence of instability. Sources close to the family suggest she targeted Kang Jiwon through his vulnerable son, using her position as a therapist to gain access to one of Korea's wealthiest men. Adanna read it in the estate library, her hands trembling with humiliation and rage. "You've seen it." She looked up to find Jiwon in the doorway, his phone in hand, his face carved from ice. "It's fine, just gossip." "It's not fine." He crossed to her, taking the tablet from her shaking hands. "They called you a gold digger, implied you're exploiting Minjae." "I don't care what they think." "I care," his voice was dangerously soft. "I care that they tried to turn the most beautiful thing in my life into something ugly." "Jiwon, violence won't." "I'm not going to kill them." He cupped her face gently. "I'm going to destroy them legally. Every publication that ran this story, every source that talked, they'll wish I had just killed them." "That seems excessive." "They attacked my family." His eyes burned into hers. "You are my family, Adanna, and I protect my family at any cost." "Your family," she repeated softly. "Yes," he pressed his forehead to hers. "You, me, Minjae, that's what we are now, that's what we've always been, even before you admitted it to yourself." True to his word, Jiwon's retaliation was swift and comprehensive. Lawsuits for defamation, financial pressure on parent companies. By the end of the week, 3 major publications had printed retractions and apologies. 2 editors had been fired. The sources had mysteriously lost their jobs and their social standing. "You didn't have to do all that," Adanna said. "Yes, I did." He pulled her into his arms. "No one gets to hurt you, not with words, not with anything." But the attacks weren't finished. Adanna was at a foundation event, a small luncheon for donors and staff, when a man approached her. Older, distinguished, with the polished smile of someone used to getting what he wanted. "Miss Okoro, we haven't been formally introduced. I'm Director Han Sungwa." She recognized the name. One of Jiwon's business rivals, a man who ran legitimate corporations, but had his fingers in plenty of illegitimate pies. "Director Han. I've been hearing such interesting things about you." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "The American therapist who captured the Ghost King's attention. I'm just here to support the foundation." Of course. He moved closer, lowering his voice. "But perhaps we could have a more private conversation about mutually beneficial arrangements." Her skin crawled. "What kind of arrangements?" "Information, mostly. Kang Jiwon's schedule, his security protocols, his private habits." Han's eyes glittered. "In exchange, I could ensure those tabloid stories disappear, restore your reputation, even provide you with resources to start fresh somewhere far from here." "You're asking me to spy on him." "I'm offering you an exit strategy." He leaned closer. "Because make no mistake, Miss Okoro, this fairy tale won't last. Men like Jiwon don't keep women like you. When he's finished, you'll have nothing." Adanna held his gaze, letting her anger show. "You're wrong about 3 things, Director Han. First, I'm not for sale. Second, Jiwon doesn't keep me, we're partners. And third," she raised her voice slightly, unsung nearby guests could hear, If you ever approach me with something like this again, I'll make sure he knows every word you said. Han's smile turned cold. You're making a mistake. No, you are. She turned and walked away, her heart hammering but her head high. That evening she told Jiwon everything. His response was immediate and terrifying. Phone calls were made, orders issued. By morning Han Sungwa's empire was under siege, tax investigations launched, business partners suddenly backing out of deals, banks calling in loans. Was this necessary? Adanna asked, watching the news coverage. He threatened you, Jiwon's voice was flat. He tried to recruit you against me. There is no version of this where he walks away unscathed. I could have handled it. I know you could have. He turned to her, his expression softening. But you shouldn't have to. That's what partnership means, facing threats together. Partnership, she repeated. Is that what we are? I'd like us to be more than that. He moved closer, taking her hands. But I'm trying not to rush you. What if I don't want you to hold back? His breath caught. Adanna. I'm tired of being careful, tired of protecting myself from happiness because I'm afraid it won't last. She stepped into his space, tilting her face up. I want to be your partner, I want to be your family, I want to be whatever you'll let me be. He kissed her then, deep and desperate and full of promise. When they broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. Marry me, he whispered. What? Marry me, not because I saved you or because you're good for Minjae, but because I cannot imagine waking up without you beside me. Because loving you is the only thing I've ever done that feels completely right. Tears streamed down her face. Yes, God, yes, 1,000 times yes. He pulled a small box from his pocket. He'd been carrying it, she realized, waiting for the right moment. Inside was a ring, elegant and understated, with a center diamond flanked by smaller stones that caught the light like stars. I had this made the week after you first came to work with Minjae, he admitted. Before I knew your favorite color or how you took your coffee or that sound you make when you're trying not to laugh, I looked at you and I knew. He slid the ring onto her finger with trembling hands, then pulled her into a kiss that tasted like forever. But their happiness was short-lived. The final attack came without warning. Adanna was leaving a session with Minjae when armed men breached the compound. Alarms shrieked. Gunfire erupted. Minjae's bodyguard, a former Special Forces operative named Kim, grabbed them both. Move now. They ran through hidden corridors Adanna hadn't known existed. Behind them, the sounds of combat echoed, shouts, weapons fire, the organized chaos of a coordinated assault. They rounded a corner and found themselves facing 4 men with automatic weapons. Kim moved fast, taking down 2 before the others could react, but the third man's weapon was already aimed at Minjae's chest. Adanna didn't think, she simply moved, throwing herself between the gun and the boy. The bullet caught her in the side. White-hot pain exploded through her body. She crumpled, distantly hearing Minjae screaming her name, hearing Kim eliminate the final threats. Adanna, Minjae's face appeared above her, streaming with tears. Adanna, don't die, please don't die. I'm okay, she managed, though she wasn't sure it was true. Blood was spreading across her shirt, warm and wet. I'm okay, sweetheart. You're bleeding, his voice cracked. There's so much blood. Look at me, she forced her voice steady despite the agony. Look at my eyes. I promised I wouldn't leave you, remember? I keep my promises. Running footsteps, shouting, and then Jiwon was there, his face a mask of anguish as he dropped to his knees beside her. Don't move her, Kim warned. The bullet. Get a medic, now. Jiwon's voice cracked as he gathered her carefully into his arms. Adanna, stay with me, stay with me. I'm here, she whispered. I'm not going anywhere. But darkness was creeping in at the edges of her vision, and she wasn't sure how long she could keep that promise. She woke in a hospital bed, white walls, beeping monitors, the antiseptic smell of medical facilities. Her side was bandaged, her body heavy with medication, her mouth dry as cotton. Jiwon sat beside her, his hand wrapped around hers, his eyes red-rimmed with exhaustion and fear. Hey, she croaked. Hey, his voice was destroyed. You scared me. How long? 4 days, surgery to remove the bullet and repair internal damage, then recovery. His grip tightened. You almost died, Adanna. The bullet nicked your spleen. You lost so much blood. But I didn't die. No, he lifted her hand to his lips, pressing kisses to her knuckles, because you're too stubborn to let something like a bullet stop you. She laughed weakly, then winced as pain shot through her side. Where's Munya? With his grandfather. He's been asking about you constantly. Jiwon's expression softened. He told everyone that you saved him, that you're his hero. I just did what anyone would do. No, his eyes burned into hers. You did what a mother would do. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Jiwon. I know we haven't talked about it, about what you'd be to him officially, but seeing you throw yourself in front of that bullet, his voice broke. You love him like he's yours. I do, I love him so much it terrifies me. He loves you too. He told me yesterday that when you're better he wants to call you Ama, if that's okay with you. Adanna couldn't speak through her tears. She just nodded, overwhelmed by the enormity of what she'd found in this unexpected family. 3 weeks later she was released from the hospital. Munya refused to leave her side. He brought her books, snacks, drawings he'd made. He sat beside her and talked about everything, music, stars, the new coding language he was learning. I drew this for you, he said one afternoon, presenting a picture. It showed 3 figures holding hands, a tall man, a woman with long dark hair in lux, and a small boy between them. Above them, musical notes floated like stars. That's us, she asked softly. That's our family. He met her eyes directly, rare, significant. You're my Ama now, is that okay? It's more than okay. She pulled him into a gentle hug. It's the greatest honor of my life. The wedding was held 2 months later, small and intimate, just family and closest associates. Munya served as ring bearer, his face serious with responsibility as he walked down the aisle. Adanna wore cream silk, her lux adorned with delicate gold beads, the scar on her side visible above her dress. She had refused to hide it. It's part of our story, she told Jiwon. I don't want to pretend it didn't happen. He had looked at her with such fierce pride, she nearly cried right there. The ceremony was brief, the vows heartfelt. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Munya let out a whoop of joy. She's my Ama now, he announced to everyone present, for real and forever. Adanna knelt before him, carefully because her side still ached sometimes, and took his hands. For real and forever, I promise. The following year was the hupupst of Adanna's life. She continued her work with Munya, who was thriving beyond anyone's expectations. He had started at a specialized school for gifted neurodivergent children, making friends, discovering passions beyond communication, robotics, astrophysics, classical composition. He's extraordinary, his teachers reported. His mind makes connections we've never seen before. Jiwon listened to these reports with quiet wonder. The son he'd feared would never connect with the world was building connections everywhere, just in his own way, on his own terms. You did this, he told Adanna one evening. No, he did this, I just helped him find the tools. 6 months into their marriage, Adanna began noticing changes. Exhaustion that wouldn't lift, sensitivity to smells, an unexpected aversion to her favkrata foods. She dismissed it as stress, then as a possible virus. It wasn't until the 3rd week that she finally took a test. 2 pink lines stared back at her. She sat on the bathroom floor for 20 minutes, the test clutched in trembling hands, her mind cycling through 1,000 emotions. Joy, terror, disbelief, wonder. She had never imagined herself as a biological mother, had made peace with the idea that Munya would be her only child. And now, Jiwon found her there just like before. He took one look at her face, at the test in her hands, and his expression transformed. Is that, his voice cracked, are we? Pregnant, she whispered, we're having a baby. He sank to his knees beside her, pulling her into his arms. His whole body shook. A baby, our baby. He pulled back, searching her face. Are you happy, is this? I'm terrified, she admitted. I'm overwhelmed, I'm certain I don't deserve this much happiness. She cupped his face. And I've never been hupuk in my entire life. He kissed her then, tears streaming down both their faces, laughing and crying and holding each other like they could merge into one person. The next morning they told Munya. He listened with characteristic intensity, processing the information in silence. Will the baby like music? He asked finally. We don't know yet, Adanna said. I'll teach them, drums and piano and composition. His voice was firm with decision. And coding, and about constellations and how to identify patterns. That's a lot of responsibility, Jiwon observed. I'm a big brother now, Minjae drew himself up proudly. Big brothers are important, they protect and teach and help. Adanna pulled him into a careful hug, her eyes bright. You're going to be the best big brother. I know, he said without arrogance, just stating fact, because I learned from the best Ayama. 8 months later they welcomed their daughter. She arrived on a summer morning, small and perfect and impossibly loud. They named her Ad, meaning joy has come home in Yoruba, Unarung Adanna's Nigerian heritage. Minjae was enchanted. He spent hours beside her bassinet, playing soft melodies on a small keyboard, telling her about everything he was learning. She smiled at me, he reported breathlessly one afternoon. A real smile, not just gas, she knows I'm her big brother. Jiwon watched his children with an expression that still made Adanna's heart ache. I never thought I'd have this, he said quietly. A real family, not built on duty or obligation but on love. You've always had this, she said, taking his hand. It just looked different before. No, he shook his head. Before you I had fear and isolation. You gave me love, you gave me everything. The following year brought more changes. Jiwon completed his transition out of criminal operations, the last shadowy dealings finally severed. He focused on legitimate business and philanthropy, funding schools, hospitals, programs for neurodivergent children and families in need. Adanna expanded her work too, training other therapists in her methods, publishing research, advocating for better understanding of diverse communication styles. She spoke at conferences internationally, always returning home to her family. Minjae thrived in middle school, navigating social complexities with growing confidence. He still struggled sometimes, crowds overwhelmed him, unexpected changes threw him off balance, but he had learned to advocate for himself, to ask for what he needed, to understand that different didn't mean less. I'm proud of who I am, he told Adanna one evening. You taught me that. You taught yourself, I just helped you believe it. 2 years later, another surprise. Adanna laughed when the test showed positive again. Apparently we're going to need a bigger house, she told Jiwon. We have a compound. Then we need a bigger compound. He spun her gently, careful of her still flat belly. 3 children, we're going to have 3 children. Scared. Terrified, his smile was radiant, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Their son arrived 6 months later, 2 weeks early, as if impatient to meet his family. They named him Chidi, meaning God exists in Igbo, another nod to Adanna's heritage. He had Jiwon's dark eyes and Adanna's stubborn chin, and from his first day, he made his presence known with powerful lungs and determined personality. Minjae took his role as eldest sibling seriously, creating schedules and systems to help manage household chaos. Idol was less impressed with the new arrival, but eventually deigned to share her toys. Our family is complete, Adanna said one evening, watching all 3 children sleep. Is it? Jiwon's voice was warm with amusement. For now, she smiled at him. Let's survive 3 before we discuss any others. 5 years later, on the anniversary of the night they met, Jiwon took Adanna back to the Schiller Hotel. They stood in the same ballroom, now empty and silent, moonlight streaming through tall windows. Do you remember? He asked softly. Every moment. She moved to the spot where she'd first seen Minjae. He was right there under the piano, hitting his head to cope with the overwhelming sensory input. Not overwhelming to you? No, never to me. She turned to face him. I didn't know that helping one scared boy would lead me to an entire beautiful life. Scared, Jiwon shook his head. He was never really scared, just waiting for someone who could see him clearly, like I was, like we both were. He pulled her close, swaying gently without music. You saw me, Adanna, past the reputation and the violence and the walls I'd built. You saw me and you chose to stay. You made it easy. I really didn't, she laughed, pressing against his chest. You were terrifying. And now you're mine. She looked up at him, her heart full. The father of my children, the partner of my soul, the man I choose every single day. For how long? Forever, she rose on her tiptoes, brushing her lips against his. And whatever comes after forever too. Outside the ballroom, Seoul glittered in the night. A city of millions, each with their own stories, their own struggles, their own chances at unexpected love. But for Adanna Okoro and Kang Jiwon, the story had always been simple. A boy alone beneath a piano, a woman who stopped to see him, a father who had lost hope, finding it again in the most unexpected place. Their love had grown from that single moment of connection, improbable, impossible, undeniable. It had survived threats and bullets, fear and doubt, the weight of their pasts and the dangers of his world. And it had created something beautiful, a family built not just on blood but on choice, on showing up every day and choosing each other again and again. Minjae was 18 now, heading to university to study music therapy and neuroscience, determined to help other children the way Adanna had helped him. Idol was 8, fierce and brilliant, already fluent in 4 languages. Chidi was 6, curious and kind with his father's intensity and his mother's empathy. And at the center of it all, Adanna and Minjae remained, unshaken, united, eternal. Their story had begun with a simple question: do you want to go somewhere quieter? It would end only when they did, and perhaps not even then. Because some loves are too powerful for endings. Some loves simply go on forever. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for more Afro-Korean stories. Drop a comment telling us which moment made you cry. Was it when Adanna took that bullet, when Minjae called her Ioma for the first time, or when they returned to that ballroom years later? Share this with someone who believes in unexpected love, and don't forget to check out our other incredible stories of African women finding home in the most unexpected places. Until next time, keep believing in love that defies all odds.